Okay, so here we are with our next losers bracket game against Darklighter. Darklighter is on Jochum, we're on Nandi. This is Dion Lunsford's WWBC, the World Battle Circuit tournament. We're trying to work our way back through the bottom ranks with an expected promise of a rematch with Alderin if we can. But we've got to get past Jochum now. No secret that Jochum's strength is the flexibility to do whatever they want with the shards and 7 card hands against our 5. So there's two things we don't want Jochum to have. The first and second, in no particular order, is discard and scrap. If Jochum gets, because it's almost impossible for us to put any meaningful discard on Jochum, but with a 5 card hand we are super vulnerable to it. And one of Jochum's big strengths is that 7 card hand, so if you let Jochum aggressively scrap, it's going to be game over really fast. So it's not just that we want scrap, but we actively want Jochum to not have scrap. So we kind of lucked out here. We got a free explorer and a trade mission, and what that means as well is that whilst Jochum's going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff, they're only going to have one hand before they cycle into the next deck, which is kind of good news for us. So first up, with our trade, we're going to top the heavy cruiser because we like drawing cards, and then we're going to pick up that hero. We quite want that for later on, and then we're also going to grab ourselves a lancer so that we can both pair that with the heavy cruiser, and also so that Jochum doesn't have it. We then get a supply run. We've got nothing in our discard to top, and we don't really want another explorer. We've already got one, and we've got plenty of trade and options for trade. So we're going to get rid of our explorer and just hit face for 4. Now it's a bit unfortunate that there's a lot of scrap on the row, and we'll see what Rick does with it. He's going to take his explorer to top. He's going to play his free explorer and grab scrap. Absolutely. Tactical maneuver gets him some more trade, and then he picks up a parasite, which is never bad. Now here, I think Rick does not take the hero, and I'm pretty sure I would be super tempted. He uses his cycle shard to discard the assault shard. Very common to get rid of that aggro. Aggro shard is the least useful, certainly in this matchup when you've got time to play with, because Nandi's applying literally 0 pressure usually to begin with. So he takes Central Station, which I don't necessarily love, and he's going to scrap with his hero. He's going to pick up, he's going to return Parasite here, picking up Convoy Bot, pick up the hero, pick up that hero, and then he's going to scrap a bit more, and he's going to pick up that green hero, pop a recon mission, and then the world gets blown up with Supernova. So initially I was really sad because I really wanted the Heartman, but he pops Wrecker for us on the row, which he is in no position to pick up. So he takes a Lancer. Pretty eventful turn 1 for Darklighter. Gets rid of some more shards, gets rid of some explorers, hits us in the face, and we get a top a Wrecker here and then draw it, which is really quite exciting. So we're going to pop the Gambit first, get rid of a Viper, then we're going to get our trade out on the deck. We're going to use our Gambit to top Wrecker. I'm going to draw into it with Heavy Cruiser and scrap out some starters because they're garbage. And then really all that's left is to take Bacon. We're going to cycle through our deck, so Bacon's going to go by the by. We get a draw from it, which allows us to pick up Cunning Captain, and we can take the Authority with our starter. So we've kind of, on always scrapping out our Explorers in general with Nandi, we don't want to see them again. So with Wrecker into our next deck, we should feel fairly confident about this game. I'm going to hit Rick down and see what we draw. And we top Wrecker, which is great news. So Rick comes in. He's got his cycle shards again, and then he's going to pick up another base. And again, these are not outposts, so we're not too concerned. If they were outposts, it's going to be maybe a bit tricky, but these are all bases designed to cycle and draw. And honestly, that's because he's not scrapping aggressively, that's not too much of a concern. We're going to win the scrap race if all other things stay equal. And Rick's kind of eschewed picking up Repairbot here. I really quite like Repairbot with Jochum because you're almost always guaranteed to get something in the discard, which means that you're usually able to leverage the disadvantage of Repairbot into an advantage, because usually you see it at the top of the deck and it makes you feel sad. But I actually quite like Repairbot for Jochum. So we're actually going to use our trade here on the starter, and we're going to top Repairbot. And the reason we're going to top Repairbot is so that, one, Rick doesn't get it, and two, we can cycle into it and scrap a card. And then we're going to get rid of Bacon because we don't really want to see it again. And then we're going to draw and draw, get some damage, get the other one of the platform shoes, the orbital platforms. We don't really want Rick getting two of those. We are going to scrap Repairbot because with a Wrecker we don't really need to keep seeing it. And things are looking good here, 63 to 35, and we'll see what Rick can do. He's central station down with a Lancer, no advantage with not having a base, but we do have to see him pick up Shayna, which he's going to top a trade hauler with, and then super flares into a draw. So he's going to draw again with Shayna, and again cycling with his shards there. And I'm not sure if Rick maybe didn't have the option to scrap with his scraps shards, but that's usually my go-to. Gets a convoy bot, which is always good. So we're going to shuffle here. I'm going to go straight into the orbital platform, which we're going to cycle. Then we're going to cycle again because we want to be seeing Wrecker in our next hand, if not now. And with a 5-card hand, that's a square deck, so we're just going to take our authority, keep healing, getting rid of his bases, and trusting in the idea that we've got Wrecker coming. Now we pick up Cargo Pod, we pop a Wormhole, which means then we're going to bring Cargo Pod back, and we're going to buy the Predator. And we're going to keep Cargo Pod because that'll ally with the Predator, and we can knock it out for 6 when we choose to. And here we're set up. We've got starters in our discard. Things are going well, and we're about to make a colossal mistake. So Rick, orbital platforms and stealth towers, which you return back to hand. So then choosing to copy orbital platform, absolutely. Getting trade hauler and getting Bacon. Picking up some more heal and some draw and shuffling. So one thing Rick does here is he shuffles before he uses his shards, which is generally quite smart because if you use them, then you're obviously seeing them in the next deck, and you don't necessarily want to. The only downside of that is that you're having to scrap a scrap shard with scrap shards, but that's fine. He triggers his heroes, gets rid of our bases. And now, for some inexplicable reason, I was playing Hearts with the kids while I took this turn, and I saw all this going on. I'm like, great, I'm going to scrap 2 with Wrecker, it's going to be brilliant. And then the first thing I did was play the Heavy Cruiser. And I still can't, to this day, tell you why I did that. So that was a huge mistake. We now have to try and cycle one of our starters, and we do get to scrap 2. We just would have improved our next deck if we'd scrapped before we drew. So there you go. Mistake. We're going to pick up another Bacon to draw another card, and then we're going to cycle that away and just make our next deck square, clear out the bases. We do have a fairly good authority total, and we're going to draw into our next deck, which is really good. So Rick here, big fan of the Recon shard. It's going to discard Lancer there to scrap, and Parasite to keep getting bases, looking to build a base wall. But the Wormhole that he did pop is going to give us Wrecker. So that's actually really nice because then we can wreck into a deck devoid of starters. It's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to draw into the Wrecker, get rid of things. We're going to Lance, get rid of bases. And we're just going to take the Bioformer. That's a fine card, but again, what we're seeing here, we saw it with the game with Dion, is that the Trader is kind of locking up with fairly average cards, and so now it's just a question of, can Rick base wall us out before we kill him, and he's not buying anything. He knows that trade row is no good. We're going to get rid of the cycler because with Heavy Cruiser and Wrecker and Bacon, we're drawing cards. It's fine. Again, drawing more cards, cycling through, getting rid of the authority because we'd rather have the damage and the bases in play, clearing out the base wall and hitting him down to 17. And now we're looking fairly good. Some heavy fishing could change matters, but nothing's coming up for Rick as he pops stuff. I'd be tempted to buy here, and indeed he does. Gets a cunning captain for his sins. But there's nothing else going on, and yeah, we can just play all our cards out, wreck, scrap, and get him to 0. So good game, Rick. I definitely feel like the early wrecker was obviously pivotal. It was really good for us. But yeah, you can't let Jochum go into the long game as Nandi, because unless you're scrapping out, you're just going to fill up on garbage. And one thing that I think I've got better as over time's marched on is one of the risks of Nandi is filling up on trash. It's really easy to do as well because you've just got a license to shop. But it's really important to restrict your spending. And so that game was an example of that, I think, and so a few of the games in this series so far have been really controlling your spending, and not leaving yourself open to your opponent being able to pick up all the bombs, because one of Jochum's strengths that not every other commander has against Nandi is that Jochum can outbuy Nandi on the row for bombs if you let them, and that thankfully didn't happen this game, because with a wrecker on board, when the trade row locks, you can just keep scrapping down, and eventually you're going to have a great deck, and that's kind of what happened here. So good game, Rick, and I'm sure you'll get me in another one soon, because I seem to spend most of my life in the bottom racket in these tournaments. So we shall doubtless cross swords again at some point, and on to the next one.